Hello everybody, it's Lazel here with another Magic the Gathering EDH deck tech. Today I'm talking about Imodane the Pyrohammer. She is a 4 mana 4/4 legendary creature human knight, which says whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control that targets only a single creature deals damage to that creature, Imodane deals that much damage to each opponent. The game plan is really simple. We will just target all of our opponent's creatures with simple instant and sorcery spells and burn our opponents down with her ability. What I like about Imodane is that she is a budget-friendly commander, so you just put a bunch of burn spells into your deck and have a huge impact to the game. We are going to win by burning down our opponent's creatures. For example, with spells like Torch Breath. For 1 red and X, this spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a blue permanent. This spell can't be countered, and Torch Breath deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. What I think is important to mention is that there are a bunch of instant and sorcery spells that burn your opponents, but here I have featured a few that are also of flexible use. For example, like Cathartic Pyre, 2 mana instant, choose 1. Cathartic Pyre deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker, or discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. Soulseer, 3 mana instant. Soulseer deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That permanent loses indestructible until the end of turn. Deem Worthy, 5 mana instant. Deem Worthy deals 7 damage to target creature. You can also cycle Deem Worthy for 4 mana, and when you cycle Deem Worthy, you may have it deal 2 damage to target creature. Abrade, 2 mana instant, choose 1. Abrade deals 3 damage to target creature. Destroy target artifact is the other option. And Demon Bolt, 3 mana instant. Demon Bolt deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. You can also foretell it for 2 generic and then just cast it for 1 red. While Imodane already deals a lot of damage to our opponents, we have a few more creatures that we can play in this deck. For example, Lamphold Rancounter. It is a 4 mana 2/4 which says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Lamphold Rancounter deals 1 damage to each opponent, and it also has a Nightbound side. Lamphold Ravager. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Lamphold Ravager deals 2 damage to each opponent, and it is a 4/4. Guttersnipe, 3 mana 2/2. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Guttersnipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. Thermal Alchemist, 2 mana 0/3 with Defender, and you can tap Thermal Alchemist to deal 1 damage to each opponent. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, untap Thermal Alchemist. Erebor Flamesmith, 2 mana 2/1. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Erebor Flamesmith deals 1 damage to each opponent. Firebrand Archer, 2 mana 2/1. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Firebrand Archer deals 1 damage to each opponent. Or also Electrostatic Field, 2 mana 0/4 Defender. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Electrostatic Field deals 1 damage to each opponent. Here's the thing about Imodane. Maybe you're matched up against a control matchup and your opponents don't play any creatures, so let's just bring the creatures to your opponents. For example, with Relic Robber. 3 mana 2/2 haste. Whenever Relic Robber deals combat damage to a player, that player creates a 0/1 colorless goblin construct artifact creature token with this creature can't block, and at the beginning of your upkeep, this creature deals 1 damage to you. Goblin Spymaster, 3 mana 2/1 with First Strike, and at the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player creates a 1/1 red goblin creature token with creatures you control attack each combat if able. Or Warchild, Betrayer of Kjeldor, 3 mana 3/3, and whenever Warchild, Betrayer of Kjeldor deals combat damage to a player, that player creates that many 1/1 red survivor creature tokens. Survivors your opponents control can't block, and they can't attack you or a planeswalker you control. When Warchild leaves the battlefield, gain control of all survivors. Aside from all of the powerful burn creatures that I've mentioned earlier, there are more helpful creatures in this deck. For example, Smoldering Egg, 2 mana 0/4 Defender. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a number of Ember counters on Smoldering Egg equal to the amount of mana spent to cast a spell. Then, if Smoldering Egg has 7 or more Ember counters on it, remove them and transform Smoldering Egg into Ashmouth Dragon. It is a 4/4 flying dragon which says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Ashmouth Dragon deals 2 damage to any target. Erratic Cyclops, 4 mana 0/8 trample, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Erratic Cyclops gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is that spell's mana value. Efreet Flame Painter, 4 mana 1/4 double strike. Whenever Efreet Flame Painter deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. There are a bunch of enchantments that make Imodane way more threatening. For example, Arcane Bombardment, 6 mana enchantment. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. Then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. You may cast any number of the copies without paying their mana cost. Double Vision, 5 mana enchantment. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. A very powerful planeswalker in this deck is Chandra, Hope's Beacon, 6 mana starting with 5 loyalty. Her static ability says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability triggers only once each turn. Her +2 is add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Her +1 is exile the top 5 cards of your library. Until end of your next turn, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from among these exiled cards. And her -X says, Chandra, Hope's Beacon deals X damage to each up to 2 targets. Fiery Emancipation, 6 mana enchantment. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage to that permanent or player instead. Gratuitous Violence, 5 mana enchantment. If a creature you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. And Furnace of Wrath, 4 mana enchantment. If a source would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals double that damage to that creature or player instead. You want to win more? You get it. Let's play Mana from Hellkite, 4 mana flying dragon 4/4. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX red dragon illusion creature token with flying and haste, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. Exile that token at the beginning of the next end step. Earth Tremor, 4 mana instant. Earth Tremor deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of lands you control. Urabrask belongs in every Spellslinger deck. Urabrask, 4 mana 4/4 first strike. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Urabrask deals 1 damage to target opponent and add 1 red. For 1 red, exile Urabrask, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery and only if you've cast 3 or more instant or sorcery spells this turn. Urabrask's backside is the Great Work. On first chapter, the Great Work deals 3 damage to target opponent and each creature they control. On the second chapter, you create 3 treasure tokens, and on the third chapter, until end of turn, you may cast instant or sorcery spells from any graveyard. If a spell cast this way would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Exile the Great Work, then return it to the battlefield. And another very powerful honorable mention is Shadow Spear in this deck, legendary artifact equipment for 1 mana. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. And for 1 generic, permanents your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, and you can equip it for 2 mana. Remember that Imodane is the source that deals the damage to each opponent, so you'll be gaining a bunch of life when Shadow Spear is equipped to Imodane, and the activated ability of Shadow Spear can handle most of the protection that your opponents will have to use. Alright guys, these were a few ideas of how I would play Imodane the Pyrohammer. If you want to add any cards to the list, just let us know down in the comments below. Let me know which legendary creature I shall feature next, and then I would say see you in the next one. Goodbye guys.